name is Ellen Magnusson and welcome to Iceland. We're going to knit together a lopi sweater called the Kristylopi sweater, which is a very pink sweater. So I will tell you a little bit about the story behind the sweater, and then today we are simply going to swatch because it's very important, and then we will also try our hand at sticking. It's a cardigan, so we're going to knit it in the round like any lopi sweater, and then we're going to cut it. But first, you probably all have seen the little video where I was skiing with the dog. It's not my dog, it's the neighbor's dog. And everybody has been asking me about my skiing skirt, but it's actually not a skirt that is meant for skiing. It's part of the national costume, and it's got lots of pleats at the back, lots of material, like about 3 meters, and then it stays straight in front. So women would be doing just everything in those skirts, and I sew one for myself this winter, and also it would be really fun to just try going skiing, hiking. So I yet have to do a bit more things with it. I'm just waiting for the snow that seems to be everywhere in the world except here in Iceland, at least in the south of Iceland. So the Kristylopi sweater, it's a sweater that is very pink, and the name comes from Kristi Glasnit. She's an American YouTuber. I will link to her channel just right underneath. And if you don't know who she is, she's taking a lot of videos with lots of designers, and interviews quite a lot of people. And she's completely mad about pink. I think when you go to a website or on her Instagram, you can't miss it. She just loves bright pink, and she came to Iceland last year before the whole pandemic things, and we couldn't meet because I had a hiking and knitting tour in the east of Iceland. So, but she went to my studio and had a look at it. So while I was away. And then we kept in touch, and I looked, of course, at the videos she had made from Iceland. So there is, I will also link that, there's a link to her visit to my studio at the time. And then she also went to a ship roundup, that is when the Icelandic sheep are all gathered together from the mountains, where they spend all the summer free. And then we have to sort them between the farmers. So everybody is participating, wearing a lopi sweater. And in their video, she noticed that there was no pink sweater. And I said, oh, she needs a pink sweater, definitely. And then I ran completely by coincidence on this very bright pink color that is made by Istex. And it's a very old color that they had for it was a summer color, I think, and it's discontinued, but then they had the stock left at the factory. I said, oh, I'm going to make a sweater for Kristi then, just with this color. So this is how the Kristylopi sweater came to story, and I made it very bright, and I definitely completely go over the top with the rest of the color. So I choose some really colors that Kristi would use, like some Turkish blue and some yellow with a bit of silk in it. It's called Enrum, so it has a little bit of bling bling. But I'm going now to let you see what sort of yarn I've been using. So it's a lopi sweater, so we are using Icelandic wool, Icelandic lopi. If you were going to use another wool, it would not be a lopi sweater. And it has become a trademark since last year. So it's definitely, lopi sweater is only a sweater that is made in Iceland with Icelandic wool and with certain features and motifs and in the round. So, lopi, what is it? I'm going to take a pink one. This is lopi. So lopi, it comes from the Icelandic lipa, which is making a roving band. So lopi is like really a roving band, and you can really split it very easily. It's completely unspun, but don't be afraid. As soon as you put it all back together, add a bit of saliva, then it comes back like really so easily, like spit splicing has never been made so easy than with lopi. So this is called Kristylopi, and we have only one factory in Iceland that is making the industrial lopi, and then we have only one big mill actually in Iceland called Steeking, and lopi is their specialty. So this one, Kristylopi, it's a single one, and it comes usually into plates. That's what we call it, Kristylopi. And then if we were going to knit it alone, I mean, it would make the sweater very light, but that would tend to wear out a little bit, especially at the friction points. So women usually, they knit it double. So you just take 2 strands of yarn and knit them double, like this. And it's equivalent then to what we call yoke lopi, means lopi light, which is another one that is made by the factory, and it's actually 2 Kristylopi that have not been really spun, but like twisted together, or it's a very, very loose spun, and you can really like separate them and then break them again. But it's much more solid when it's like this. So it's usually used double. Then the reason why it doesn't break is because of the quality of the Icelandic wool. It's made of 2 sorts of hair. There's a very long togue, which is the outer coat. It's a bit coarse hair, the one that scratches a little bit. And then underneath they have the thell, which is a very soft underlayer, very warm. And the lopi is usually made of the 2 type of hair all together. And as much as you can break it easily here, it doesn't break. It's because I'm holding a very long togue hair, so it's like strong enough. So this is why the lopi will stay. But lopi Kristi is knitted with a very loose gauge. I use very big needle, it's a very quick knit. And so to reinforce the lopi, make sure it will not wear out too much, I decided to blend it with another yarn, which is the yarn that I'm making myself, and that's called Love Story. So maybe I will tell you the story of Love Story during the KAL while we were knitting, but it's a yarn that it took me about 10 years to develop, and it's a very fine lace yarn. It's like a thread almost. It's not cobweb, but almost. It's like in the between. It's made out of lamb's wool and spun like really, really fine. And it's pure Icelandic lamb's wool. And I found that it would work like really, really well when it's blended with the Kristylopi, because not only you can't really see it, it doesn't really add any thickness, but it does add lots of strength. I mean, you can't break the yarn anymore. Well, except of course if I'm going like really fast. So I had already used this blend with a previous sweater called Frjókorn. So that's the sweater in questions. And it's not just that it makes it more solid, but it also makes it much softer because it's lamb's wool, and because the yarn, the lopi is unspun, there is no texture to it. So it's really like, yeah, something completely different. And because it's knitted at a very loose gauge with big needle, then it's quite light too. So I have another here version a red one. And the Kristylopi is knitted with the same blend. So it's like a very light sweater. So in the Kristylopi, again, because it was for Kristylopi, I went a little bit over the top, and I had to knit not just another pink, but an orange one. So I'm going now to show you a bit closer what I mean by that. This is the Kristylopi, so you can see it. I have this very bright pink, and then I have the orange love story in it, so it gives like kind of a little peps. Of course, the the original pink lopi that I had, it is discontinued now, so I replaced the pink by another one in the kit that I have. So if you can see, it makes something like slightly different. It's not us, it's maybe a little bit more orangey, so maybe you would want to make it with another color, but it's close enough at least. And then in the pattern itself, so I've been using lopi here, the blue one, and the white, and then the yellow is called Endrum. So Endrum is some lopi that has been untwisted with a little bit of silk. So this one is called Endrum L. L stands for lopi. There are two types, Endrum E for Endrum Endband and Endrum L for lopi. And the Icelandic wool has this particularity that it kind of blooms. It's very hairy. So when you knit it, it tends to occupy the space that you're going to knit to use it with. So you can basically knit it at all sorts of gauge. It will just bloom and occupy the space and the stitches. And that's why it's so important to make a swatch. So this is a swatch I made. So a swatch is just a piece of fabric that we're going to knit, and then we're going to count how many stitches there is for 10 centimeters or 4 inches, and then how many rows. So let's just begin with that, because if your gauge is too loose, then you're going to have a sweater that is too big for you, and if it's too small, then the sweater will be too small. So the gauge for the Kristylopi sweater is 14 stitches for 10 centimeters. So we want to cast on not 14 stitches and measure, we want to cast on more here. I think I cast on like 20 or something. And then once we have knitting our swatch, we can simply like measure. So there are different type of instrument measure where you can count the stitches and then eventually the rows. So we go into make a swatch together. There are different methods to make swatch. This is just a plain stocking stick swatch, so you could knit it either back and forth or in the round. I know there are some schools that tell you always have to make your swatch in the manner that you're going to knit your sweater. That's true to a certain extent. I will always do that if I have to work some color work or a stitch that really needs to work in the round. But when it comes to stocking stitch, first, we're not all having a dramatically different purl gauge. And also, your swatch is not necessarily what you're going to knit your sweater with. What I mean is that there are all sorts of factors that can influence on your gauge once you knit in your sweater. Like, for example, if you're a little bit stressed, maybe you will knit a little bit faster or tighter. Or if you're very relaxed, it would depend on the music, and then it can also be the weather and the temperature or the needles you're using, or if you are pissed off. So I think a swatch gives you a very good indication if you got the gauge right, but you also have to check it as you knit your sweater. And then you can either take the yarn from the middle. So when you take it from the middle, you still have to be careful not to pull it, or I find it often easier if you to begin to take it from the, where is it? To take it from the outside of the plate. And when I'm knitting it together with Love Story, I do not make a I do not wind the yarn into a ball first, because if your Kristylopi is going to break, let's say it's breaking, then you will have like some kind of a difference, and you will have just in some places only the Love Story together, and it will just be difficult to put it back because they will be all cling together. So we're just going to knit those two together. And usually what I do is like I take this like a bit out, and this one is just a normal skein. We usually break it when we are pulling it out rather than knitting, and because of the Love Story, it's like very sturdy. So I'm going to cast on 20 stitches. So I'm just going to cast on with whatever method you want. It's just the swatch. Oops. Oh, I think I have to put my glasses. I don't have them on my nose and I don't really see anything, but... So this one, we're not going to knit it back and forth, but in the round, and I'm going to show you where you can actually swatch flat in the round. So there are different methods. So let's just knit our 20 stitches. I'm knitting the English way, and sometimes I'm knitting the German way. In Iceland, we knit the German way. So I'm not sure when that was. Knitting came to Iceland in the 16th century, and I'm not sure in Germany people were already knitting the German so-called way, because it didn't started to spread to other countries before the 19th century, which would indicate that maybe it came like later as a way to work faster, which is, by the way, subject to discussion. I think the Icelandic knitters are definitely the fastest in the world. All right, so we finished our first row, and now what are we going to do is just like, instead of turning and purling the stitches, we're going to slide all the stitches on the other side of the needle, and then we're going to knit again, so from this side, so always knit, always facing, and on the back we're going to leave a loop of yarn like this that will avoid you know, making it too tight. I mean, you want to be able to loosen up all the stitches together. And then once we arrive at the end of, so here I'm just going to take the Kristylopi, and then this one is just easy. So once we arrive at the end of the round, of the row, I mean, because we're not knitting in the round like this, then we do the same and come back to the other side. And trying usually to make a loop but of the same type of looseness. And I got a little trick from one of the designers that I really like. Also, I can't remember her name. Why can't I remember her name, like, suddenly? And she's got this brilliant idea, like, to put a skein of yarn, just to put the skein, you know, in between, so that your loop are like about regular. Let's see where it goes. And it just doesn't go forward. You just make like regular loops, and you don't have to think too much about how loose they are. They will just be about the same length, all of them. So at the end, oops, I needed only one strand here. Just go all the way back, and then I put the yarn at the back here, at the back of the skein, and then continue knitting like this. Oops. I can knit a bit faster. I'm just behind the camera, so it's not the most comfortable place to be, but let's see how it goes. And then if you want to work the German way, I mean, it's the same basically, but you know, it doesn't have to change. It will just make the same swatch, whatever you prefer. So we can continue like this for a long time. And then here, if I make the loop not big enough, then I won't be able to stretch the knitting when I want to measure my gauge, so I will have to cut them. So I'm going to show you another method where you don't have to actually cut the yarn to put the swatch like completely flat, which means in terms that you can reuse the yarn if you would not have enough. So for that, you do the same. You slide the stitches to the right of the needle, but then instead of just taking a little loop, you make a very big loop. You want to make at least like 6 times. So I'm just going around 1, 2, 3, and then about 6. Yeah. So it makes like a, I don't know if you can see it, it makes like a really, really big loop at the back. It doesn't have to be precise how long it is. You just want it long enough though, so you can knit with it. So later I'm going to show you. So now I'm knitting from the cake to the end of my row, just like I was doing before, and just the loop is just a big loop. And here we do the same. We slide the stitches to the end of the needle, but this times, instead of making another loop and knitting from the cake, we are going to knit with the loop, the huge loop we made. And that's why I want it long enough so it doesn't entrave us. For example, I know some of you are using their pinky to knit, securing the yarn here, which use already like a certain length. So we want to make a big loop so we can knit to the end without having it a bit too tight. Now I arrive at the end of the needle again. And here, so this is my loop. So this is all I have left of the loop, and it will just stay there on the left of the needle. So now I have the loop and the skein that is on the same place. So I'm doing the same thing again. I'm taking this very big loop. So after a while you will kind of make it the right length. Once you know about how many you need, you can always measure it on something, on a table or a chair or a book. So it's easy. And then I do the same again. So now I'm knitting from the cake, the first row. Now I have the cake on the right side. Oops. And then I'm going to knit from my big loop here. So slide the stitches to the right side of the needle. And I'm knitting from the loop. So it makes lots of loop. I'm almost there. And here we go. So this is how it will end, really, with loops on the right side, on the left side, sorry, of the work. Which means that you will be just able to unravel, but you can still hold your swatch like clear. So we can just continue like this until we have about a square, and then once the swatch is finished, we also have to wash it. So I know it takes time, you have to wash it, let it dry flat. I usually wash the lopi sweaters, just put it in water, warm. There's nothing particular with it. And with a bit of soap that is made for wool. And then I like to use either the knitting machine to take the water off, or just a salad centrifuges also when it's something very little. And then you have to let it dry, and then when it's dry, then you can measure it and see if your gauge is correct. So it's the stitch gauge is the most important, because this is what will give you the circumference. And if you have more stitches for 10 centimeters than it should be, then it means you need to use bigger needle. And if on the contrary you have less stitches than you're supposed to have, then you need to use smaller needle. So depending on how big the difference is, you can go half a size smaller, make a swatch, check it, and then eventually another size smaller, make a swatch, just until you get the right gauge. As for the row gauge, depending on knitter, it can be very different. So you may get the stitch gauge right, but not the row gauge. It's not that important. Also, it can be, but to a certain extent, but it's less important. And because in the sweater we can also work from centimeter or inches, and I usually use measurements rather than a certain numbers of rows in the instructions I give, and so it's not necessarily so difficult. So that was the swatch. Now sometimes I want to just cast on right away. I don't want to wash my swatch. I don't have the patience to wait for my swatch to, you know, to dry, to be wet. And I want to cast on right away. So I have one little trick, block using steaming. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So to block steaming, you can either have an iron that has some steam or a steamer, but I don't have any. I just have an old iron. So what I use is a piece of cloth that is really wet, and I put it on my swatch. And before, I will maybe want to pin it in place, you know, just to the measurement, so it stays like flat. And it kind of makes little miracle, this steaming. It's like when you want to steam a pom-pom. And it's especially true with that Icelandic yarn. It's kind of makes it really like bloom. It gets all nice and softer, and it's really nice. So just here like this, and then I love the smell and the noise. And you don't want to press like really hard on it. You just want to stay on top just to get the steam. It smells so good. And then just remove it, and it's kind of wet, so this is where you want to let it dry, but it's just not going to take a long time. And then once that's done, you can remove the pins, and then you have a very nice swatch. Ooh, that you can, you know, you want to have it a little bit like flatten, and then you can measure it and see if the bow gauge is correct. So now that we have our swatch and we know the gauge is correct, we can make good use of it and try our sticking in it. So first I'm going to explain to you a little bit how a lopi sweater is made. So it's knitted entirely in the round, so you usually knit like 3 pieces. You knit the body and 2 sleeves, and then you have to join them in the round. We all knit everything in the round. It's much easier, much quicker, much more regular. And then we combine all the stitches. I will explain that to you in the next KAL coming, but then everything is combined, leaving some stitches here for the underarms, and then the yoke. This part is knitting in the round as well with the motifs, and then we are cutting the sweater just right in the middle in the front, and then finishing the same. So I know a lot of you are a bit scared with the cutting part, but honestly it's one of the most easiest things to do. And in order to take a little bit away the anxiety from you, we're going to cut our swatch, because you don't care cutting that little piece, do you? So let's cut our swatch. We want to make sure to cut straight, so we're going to cut in between 2 stitches. So we have the little V here, and we're just going to cut here in the middle. And we want to cut our cardigan very straight, but the swatch, it doesn't matter, so just cut in between like this. Very easy, just don't hesitate. And here we go. And like you can see, nothing much happens for the moment. So you can try to unravel that. Here we go. So like you can see, if you were going to cut your sweater, it will take a little bit of work to actually unravel it, because stitches, they unravel on like vertically, not horizontally. Of course, the Icelandic wool is very sticky. If you were going to try this on cotton, it may come out a bit more easily. This is something you can try just on about any yarn. And otherwise, I have a little trick to go faster. It's just like, you know, to go with a one, and you have to go in every stitch. Let's unravel our swatch, will you? Let's do that. Up. Okay, here we go. So, you know, it's not so easy. So, as you can see, it just makes a little fringe. And what happened on the other side, it didn't move, nothing happened there, it's just cut, and that's it. So I hope that will help you be a bit more confident about making a cardigan and not a sweater. And we'll see how it goes. I will show you all kind of little tricks and techniques, but let's just keep that one as a proof, and we see maybe it will completely unravel during the night or until after our last sequence when we do the finishing. Who knows? So that was it for today for the swatching part and the sticking part. Once we have our swatch correct, then it's going to be time to choose the size of your sweater. And there are in the Kristylopi a lot of size, like from XS, extra small, to 5XL. So I hope you will find something for you. Usually you take the bust and you have all the measurements, so you can just compare them. The sweater is relatively short and with relatively slim sleeves, because it's just the way I like it. But you can of course adapt and choose a bigger size. So how to do that? You just usually add the recommended ease to your own measurements, and then you compare it to the measurements of the sweater and choose the size that is corresponding to it. For example, if you are let's say 90 centimeters in the bust, you will have the ease you want, which would be like, let's say 5 centimeters. So you would have 95 centimeters and you will choose the size that is the closest to those 95 centimeters. I don't remember what I put in the patterns, but it's probably the size L, yeah, or M, I don't know. I will look at it, and I'm sure you will too. There are some of you that have issues with bigger breasts. I'm not going to address it here. There's lots of material and sources about it. There's lots of really amazing designers that have been doing quite a lot of job on it, so we'll just let you just check it. And if you want, you can also ask in my Facebook group if you want me to put maybe the links to some resources that you could find. But then it's going to be time to choose the colors, because some of you so get the last part of the skits, but it's completely sold out now. I still have it with the milder pink. But then you can of course, and this is part of the hand knitting that is so nice, is that you can of course knit it in the color that you want. So this was a little bit out of my comfort zone, I must say, and here I made another one which I really like, and which is just in 2 colors. So I used the lopi yellow in the motif, and then in the body I use a mix of lavender Kristylopi with some thyme purple, like a purple violet. And I really like, you can see it, I really like how it kind of had a bit of darkness to it. The thyme purple. So when it comes to choose the color, this is where I also like to make a swatch. So I very often do little things like that. So I take just a few repeats from the yoke and then just work them. I always do that as a designer because I want to check my colors, and I also want to check where I put the decreases and so forth. But so this is the color combination that I choose for the milder pink version. I put a kit on the website as well. And to knit that one, well, I use the swatching in the round method, and then I just cut everything on each side. And then I cast on like 25 stitches, like the same number of stitches that are on the chart. The chart is showing you actually 2 repeats, but two stem, 2 flowers. So you can just cast on the charts and knit in the round and just choose your color and see how it works. And then I've been just like cutting and steaming it, and it's not been secured or anything. I'll just cut it, you know. It's a swatch. What do I do with those swatch? Sometimes, where are they? Sometimes I make little things for the dolls with them. So I have, always try to find things, but can never seem to find them. So for example, this little swatch, it was for a sweater I made called Hjaltlandsspesa. So this is the Hjaltlandsspesa. Hjaltlandsspesa means the Hjaltlands is the Shetland Islands. And this is a typical, I would say, Icelandic sweater looking. But then I wanted to make, and it's the same sweater, just change of color. Oh, I love it, how it can look so completely different. And so this is a swatch I made. And then I added pick up stitches. I added a bit of ribbing on the top and a little button, and then it can come here. It can go on the dolls, and they have a little poncho, and they are very happy with it. Ooh. As for me, I'm going to just use my stash with my colors. So. Maybe I won't make a swatch to begin with, I'll just go with the flow. So I'm going to use this. So this is kind of a pale green, which doesn't suit me so well. And don't ask me about it because it's completely discontinued. So you won't find it in the shade card. So we have some shade card on the website. This is all the Kristylopi. Maybe you could use some blue if you want a similar color combo. And I'm going to mix it with some natural brown of the Love Story. So it's actually natural black, but it looks like very, very dark and very rich brown. So I'm going to blend those two together. And I think it's going to be nice. It's going to be really like heathered, and it will add a bit of darkness and certification to the green, and also make it like a little bit more suitable for my tone. And then for the colors, I'm not sure, but I was thinking to take as an inspiration the old flower pot that you can find. I have a sweater, I have just the mittens now, but we have some flower pot motif that I will show them to you, that are embroidered in mittens, and that you can also find on shoe inserts. Where did I put the shoe inserts? It's all in a mess here. I lost the shoe. So I was sitting on it, but this is a kind of shoe insert with this flower pot. So I think I'm just going to try to go with the motif like this. I mean, this is basically what the motif is inspired by. I wanted something a little bit refined, like Kristy. So it's kind of a pot with the stem all over here, and there is the kind of diamond flowers and some leaves. So I think I'll just go with the flow and see what I have in my stash and just use that. And yeah, And then otherwise, maybe you want to use Kristylopi or lopi. I don't make a lopi sweater, but that's another story. Or maybe you're allergic to lopi, or maybe you think it's too scratchy, or maybe you just want to cast on right away, and we are in the middle of a pandemic and the post is taking such a long time and drives me completely nuts. Not just you, me as well. And then there is a shortage of lopi because everybody seems to be knitting and knitting with lopi too. So which drives us completely nuts as well. There's always some colors that are missing. It's terrible, and then we never know when they will be back. But anyway, that's another story. So maybe you want to use another yarn, and that's quite possible. I would recommend that you use something that is going to use the space, because remember it's a very loose gauge. So you want something that fills it up. So I would not go with a very rounded yarn. And you could also blend it, for example, with a very fluffy one, such as mohair. I'm allergic to mohair, so forget about it. But yeah, mohair and lobstery can really be interchangeable to some extent. So mohair must be a little bit more fluffy, but this will give it some course. And I asked one of my friends who has a yarn shop called granda-mother. It means the Eta's yarn shop, and I asked her to make a few suggestions for us, which she did, and she went for completely different colors. And
Hi, my name is Edda. I have a small yarn shop in Iceland, and Helene asked me to put together some suggestions for the Kristylopi sweater. So here they are. First, I would like to show you this one here. We have, this is British wool, bluefish Leicester and mohair. For the main color, I would like to have this one here. And then for the contrast colors, these three here. And I also have the mohair for that, but it's how to pick up 6 skeins when you're holding 3. Okay, so then I have this one here. I was thinking about these for the main color, lamb's wool and silk mohair from Bishe Bush. Hope I'm saying it right. And the contrast colors, these 3. So for the main color, you use the mohair together with the lamb's wool, and you could use the lamb's wool double for the contrast colors. And the third one has this one as the main color. This is the Icelandic lopi. So you would use 1 strand of Kristylopi and 1 strand of the mohair. For the contrast colors, I have this one, and this one. So it looks like this. When I put it down on the table, I saw they are pretty similar, the 3 suggestions, but I don't know.
So it's going to be time to let you know about the winner of this week giveaway, because it's a KAL, it's a knit along. So my daughter has been the one choosing the winner. I have no idea how she did it, but she did it. And so I will contact her. Her name is Gudrun, and I will contact her with a lot. But to be eligible for the giveaway, you have to do a few things. To participate in KAL, first you have to, of course, buy the pattern for the sweater. You can either buy it on my website or on Ravelry. I'll put the link on. You want also to like the videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And then this is maybe more optional, but it's a good place to be. I put a Facebook group together where we can you know, ask questions, share our color combinations and things like that. If you don't have Facebook, I understand that completely, and it's not like absolutely necessary to be in it, but also it would be nice also to have a, you know, a kind of another private place. And if there are some questions, I will be able to answer them, or maybe make a little live from time to time. I know many of you are also from France or Iceland, and maybe they want to have, you know, just a little bit more explanation in their own language. So I will do what I can, and I will do that on the Facebook group. Yeah, so I think that will be it for today. So congratulations to Gudrun. So what is she earning? She's going to get a kit for a little doll. So I have all sorts of dolls. This is Olivia. This is Theodora, and the others are here and there, but we have another Gudrun, Henrietta, and they are my assistants, so you will always see them a lot around. They are just the one helping me with everything I do, and without them I would just be like completely lost. And those dolls belong to my daughters when they were little. This was Thea's doll, and this is mine. Yeah, so they've seen a long way and they've been following me all the way. But yeah, that will be it for today. Last week we will cast on the body. I know in the pattern I'm saying that we will, I usually prefer to knit the sleeves before the body, but for educational purpose we're going to start with the body. So until then, have a nice week, and for those of you who are waiting for your yarn, it will arrive. It just takes time. 1 month, 1.5 months. It's terrible, but it does arrive at the very end of it. So please be patient. Thank you. See you. Oh, this is such a mess.